Okay, so let's jump right into the topic. Again, my name is Suzanne Hart. Our topic today is, do you have a story to tell? We're going to talk about unleashing the power of your story. That's right, the power of your story. And really, do you have a story to tell? Now, they say that facts tell and stories sell. How many of you have actually heard that? You know, when I first got into network marketing, that was one of the adages everybody used: facts tell and stories sell. And oftentimes when people are wanting to move a product, sell a product, talk about a product, they talk facts. But the reality is, what makes people buy is the story of someone's experience of a product, the story of how that product got to market, but also your story. So what we're going to talk about today is you being the product and how someone might actually buy you and then buy your product because of the story that you have to tell. Think about it. Now, when I started doing this, you know, we do the I like to call them the quiz, but we do a poll at the beginning of every week that goes with our topic. And one of the questions we ask is, how many of you are thinking about speaking, and kind of ask people what they thought about it. And there was a number of people who said, I want to speak. I really want to speak, but they weren't sure where to start. We're going to help you with that today. There was other people that were saying that I want to speak, but as Cindy said, I am deathly afraid of public speaking. That was so me about 10 years ago. If someone said I'd be doing lives every week and speaking on stages to thousands of people, I would have said, that is not me. I was afraid to speak to 10 people, 20 people, 100. That is not happening. And then we asked, and some people asked, you know, do you have a story to tell? And some people said, no, I don't think my story is all that important. I don't think anyone would be interested. And this is all the conversations that run us. And most of the time when you ask people, do you have a story? Everyone says, no, I don't think so. So let me give you the first clue. If you have been on this planet for a number of years and you have been through any type of adversity, if you've overcome something, you have a story worth telling. It's true. You absolutely, totally have a story worth telling. And most of us don't understand that because we think that stories have to be big. They have to be like, I walked on the moon. I did all these wonderful things. No, a story is the journey of your life. It's the rise from a fall. It's the moving from where you are to the place you want to be and what happened in between to get you there. If you're living, breathing, and you're positive because you've overcome something, you definitely have a story to tell. So let's talk a little bit about why stories work and why are they so good. I want you to think of a moment about a movie, because a movie is just a long story and we get caught up in movies for very clear reasons. So why do stories work? Well, the first thing is stories paint pictures. You know, the minute someone starts telling you a story, I don't know if you know this, but you go right into your imagination and you start following the story in your head. You paint your own pictures. Now, what is the cool thing about a story is not only do you paint your picture, but you paint the picture from your perspective. You paint the picture that works for you because your mind goes to work, and based on your culture, based on your race, based on your experiences, all those things, that colors the story you tell. But you do follow the person, but you're painting your own picture. So the first thing that's beautiful about stories is it helps you paint a picture. Now, a story also moves us into emotion. So remember when they said that facts tell? Facts are dry, facts are data, facts are just the hard stuff, or it's the information. But a story gives you the emotion behind something. It drops you instantly into your emotions as you paint the picture. But a story also allows us to relate. It allows us to connect with the person that's telling the story. What's beautiful about stories is it gives us an insight into someone's world, and we get engrossed in that if the story is told well. What else does it do? Of course, it activates our emotions. Have you ever watched a movie or had someone tell you a story and you tear up? That is the power of story. And I'll tell you, this is the other thing. It's the oldest way we transfer information. Think about that. Storytelling is ancient. We have been doing it since the beginning of time. No matter what culture you're in, we tell stories. No matter where you live on the planet, we tell stories. No matter what generation you're in, we still tell stories. If you listen to a young child, they will start telling you a story. If you watch a child out back playing by themselves, in their imagination, they are creating their own story. How many of you have actually got caught daydreaming at school, right? Daydreaming. And you know, they'll tell you stop daydreaming, but daydreaming is wonderful because when we daydream, we are in our imagination and we are creating a story. And that's why children are so creative. They get into that place in their mind and they daydream and they tell stories and they act it out. You watch it in the backyard as they become baseball players, athletes, astronauts, nurses, doctors, and they act out the story. That's why story works, because no matter where we live on the planet, we can relate to it. So that is the power of stories. So, you know, why would you want to tell a story? And what is the purpose of story? Well, you know, one of the things about speaking that really kind of, you know, gets people concerned is people get concerned around getting the data right. They get concerned about giving the right information. They get really concerned about being perfect and memorizing stuff. And oftentimes the reason people are nervous about speaking is because the stuff that they're bringing to the world is stuff that they've learned, stuff that they've memorized, stuff that they've, you know, they're preparing for their presentation, and they're really, really, really caught up in the data. That's why you see people depending on their slides. That's why you see people reading their slides. That's why you see people memorizing what they're talking about, because they're really depending on the data. And what that does is it keeps us in our head. And when we're in our head and we're really the presenters, it keeps us disconnected. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about where I started and why I got so engulfed in stories, and why storytelling is what I love to teach, but it's also the way I train and speak. I build everything out of story. Why? Because it makes it really, really, really simple. So let me see what's happening. I see Don Jones has joined us. I see Mark Wheatley has joined us. Welcome, welcome. So one of the things I'm asking everybody is do you think you have a story to tell? Are you nervous about speaking? Does the thought of taking the stage scare you? Does the thought of doing a live scare you? Because we are all going virtual right now. So many moons ago, when I first started telling, you know, when I first started speaking, I was committed to being really good and perfect. So I would work on my presentation, I would write my notes, I would really get clear on my notes. And I got to the point where I was pretty polished, but I was always really nervous. And invariably I'd leave the stage and I'd go, oh, I forgot to tell this, and I forgot to say this, and I should have said this differently. And I was really caught up in the perfection of speaking. And although I was good, I would tell you I wasn't all that relatable. And what was happening was I wasn't connected to my audience. Now this is why, because I was connected to the piece of paper with all my information, I was connected to the slides, and I was connected to the information I had memorized in my head. So I wasn't in this thing called engagement. And then I started working with a trainer by the name of David Wood. And I remember David saying to me, Suzanne, I want you to tell your story, right? And this was when I was in network marketing. And he's like, when you take the stage, I want you to tell your story, your authentic, real story. Now for me, I was like, oh, heck no, I'm not telling my authentic, real story. Now, how many of you listening, when you think of telling the real deal, the true stuff, you think, oh my gosh, it is messy, it is ugly, it might discredit me, it's a little embarrassing, and it's gonna make me way too much or too vulnerable, and you say, no, 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 that's not what I'm going to do. And that was me. I was like, no, I wasn't raised that way. I am not going to tell my story. I'll tell the good, the cleaned up, beautiful version of my story. And he said, no, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to be authentic. I want you to be transparent. And he'd always say to me, when authentic Suzanne takes the stage, things are going to change. And I never really got it. So I would work and I would tell a little bit of the story, but I wouldn't. Anyone out there just telling just enough to say, I'm doing it, but not enough to feel a little vulnerable, a little naked, a little like this is way too much, like the audience is gonna see all my flaws. I want to be perfect because I'm the expert. I want people to believe that I know what I'm doing. I want them to see where I have arrived and all my successes. And that's how people take the stage. Here I am with my degrees, all my glory. This is what I'm here to teach you, and I've arrived. That's how we take the stage. Now, this is what David taught me. He said, when you show up in all your perfection, in all your glory, in all your greatness, and you say, this is my widget, this is my course, this is my this, and I'm amazing, what the audience does is the audience looks at you and goes, you're too perfect. I can't relate because I'm not that perfect. And I'm paraphrasing, but they say things that are something like that. Because you see, this is the thing, and this is what got me, and this is why I started sharing my story. None of us are perfect. All of us have been through something. All of us have had some highs, some lows, and you and I know that the learning, our greatness, what has built our character and actually expanded our heart and built our muscle and gave us strength, confidence, and all that stuff is the rise from where you are to where you want to be. So where you started to where you want to be. And it's all the highs and lows, pits and valleys, fall down, pick yourself up, the tears, the crushes, the moments when you wanted to give up. It's all those things that make where you are have meaning. It's all those things that make where you are juicy. So for most people, when they look at you in all your greatness, they can't relate if they're starting at the beginning. And really what they want to know is, do you get me? Do you understand me? Have you ever walked in my shoes? Have you ever felt my pain? Have you ever been so low that you never thought you could get back? Has life ran you over, backed up, sat on your chest, and you thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to get up? That's actually what the audience is thinking, and they want to know that you relate. So when David asked me to tell my real story, he wanted the details. So I will never forget the day I took the stage and I told my story. I told about being financially upside down. I told about going back and forth to the doctor because I had lost weight and I had not taken care of myself. I told about being so hopeless that I would lay in bed and cry. I told about all the fears I had. I told about getting divorced. I told about, not being able to find a place to live that I could afford. I talked about starting over. I talked about when I started my business and nothing happened and everybody took off and I felt like I was left in the starting blocks and they lapped me. I told it all for my first time when I actually became coachable. And what happened was what shifted my speaking. When I told my story and I told about all the things that were ugly, I told about what I was embarrassed about, I told about the different things, people began to relate to me because suddenly I became real. You see, when I was willing to be vulnerable, take off the mask, stop looking good, and actually say, this is the deal, they actually got an idea of where I started and the journey it had taken to get me where I was. They had an idea of all the things I had to overcome, all the ways I had to grow, all my fears, concerns, all the lessons I had to learn. They had a picture of Suzanne. And now they had an idea of my character, my strength, my commitment. And in that moment, I became relatable. because other people in the audience could see themselves. Remember I said, when you tell a story, you paint a picture. And other people in the audience could see themselves in my story and they could relate to me. But then they understood what it took for me to come out the other side and all I had gone through. You see, they understood the distance I had traveled. And this was the curious thing. They also knew I wasn't talking from theory. They also knew I wasn't just a book-learned person telling you stuff. They knew that I had had the experience that they were looking for. They also knew I understood their pain. They also knew I could lock arms with them and not give up. But they knew also that I had the stuff to get them through to the other side. That became the power of my story. So not only did I become relatable, they learned about my character, they learned about my heart, they learned about the stuff that I can't really talk about when I'm talking about my products. My products don't tell that, my services don't tell it. But this is the other really cool thing. You see, it's hard to get on stage and say, I'm wonderful, I'm great, I'm amazing, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, I've achieved all the other. People don't like to hear that. But when you tell a great story of the journey, the walk, the highs, the lows, what you do is you edify yourself. You also earn the right to actually now talk about your products and services. So you see, one of the things I really want everyone to get is people don't buy from you until they buy you. There needs to be what George Fraser calls a click. They need to know, like, and trust you, and you need to be the right person who understands and identifies with their journey. And you see, this is the thing. When we start talking about our products don't let them identify. They don't see themselves in us. But when we tell our story, they go, I see myself in you. And you know, what happened for me after I took the stage and told my story, when I got off, I have to tell you, I felt naked as a jury bird. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so naked. I told too much. I felt like I was mortified. And I was like, why did David tell me to do this? Oh my goodness. But what happened next was the clicker, and it changed everything. I had people coming up to me and going, thank you. Because of you, I believe I can do this. Thank you. I thought I was the only one struggling. Thank you. I have been in such a low and I didn't think anybody could relate to me. Thank you. Because of you, I know I can do this. I was getting these thank yous because they saw themselves in what I had done. They saw themselves in my journey. And in that moment, this is what I want you to get. I became a source of inspiration. I inspired people. And you see, when you inspire people to want to take action, you now have this thing called influence. And influence is where sales happen. We are required to be a person of influence. And the question is, how do you create influence? You see, influence isn't about us, what comes out of our mouth. Influence is shown in our journey. Influence is built in our walk. Influence is what people get when they understand who we are and the rise from the fall. That's really what happened. So in that moment, I got filled up by my audience. Now, this was the other really cool thing. You see, once I started telling my story, it was mine. It was mine. How many of you now really see that you have a story? I see Howard is watching, welcome. Once I started telling my story, it was mine. And you see, this was what happened. I didn't have to now count on memory. I didn't have to memorize the words and the this and the that. Yes, there was some phraseologies I used that branded me, but this was the beautiful thing, was it was my story. So it was authentic, it was real, it was filled with my energy, it was filled with my emotion. And as I told my story, I was able to stay connected to my audience because I wasn't in my head, I was in my heart. I wasn't in memory. I was on a journey. I was taking them on a journey that I knew intimately. So I could take them in my unique way to places and spaces that only I could go. And that's why they bought me, because I knew what I was saying was authentically real and vulnerable. But the other thing was, because I wasn't in my head, and you know, when we're memorizing and we're thinking, we look up and we look into our head, we look at our slides. And when I'm looking at my slides or looking in my head, I am not connected with you. So see, the other thing that happened was I stayed connected with my audience. People told me that they thought that they were the only person in the room. And I hear that often when I speak. I feel like I'm the only person in the room. I feel like you're speaking directly to me. Why? Because I'm in connection with my audience, because they are the most important thing in my room. The other thing that David taught me in that moment, as he taught me to be vulnerable and tell my story, he also taught me to give up my need to be perfect. He also taught me to give up my need to be right. He taught me to feed off my audience. He said, the story you tell today and the way you tell it today will not be the way you tell it tomorrow. Why? Because there's an engagement and an interaction, and you feed off who's in front of you. And you get that energy, and the story unfolds a little bit different just because of who's in the room. And so there's this connectedness and interplay that makes speaking fun. Now, this is the thing about speaking that I've learned. When I decide to get out of my own way and give up my need to be perfect and tell my story and be authentic and be really real, I actually get to focus on the audience, and I forget about Suzanne. And my fear goes away. Why? Not because I'm any better. It goes away because the audience becomes the most important people in the room, not me. The audience becomes who I'm committed to moving and inspiring, not me. And I realize that they don't want me to be perfect. They want me to be real. They want to know, can I trust this person? Do I like her? Is she the same person on stage as she is off stage? If I see her, is the story that she told me real? That's what they're really looking for. So they're looking for that connection. They want to be able to feel who we are before we deliver our products and services. Now, remember I asked you guys, do you have a story to tell? That's how I started. And I said, everybody has a story to tell. This was the other thing that happened to me that day. What I began to realize, and I want you guys to really get this, what I began to realize was my teachings were the lessons I learned on the journey. My teachings, what built my products and services, was the lessons I learned on the journey. So as I told my story and I told them about the journey, I told them about being able to give up my need to be perfect. I told them about my willingness to take 100% responsibility for what I was about to create. I told them about my learning to be vulnerable and realizing that vulnerability is my greatest strength, not my greatest weakness. I told them about learning to connect, and that connecting is about the focus on the person. I began to teach them my lessons that lived in my story. You see, my service was what I had learned. And you see, when I asked you, do you have a story to tell? We've all overcome something, and we all have a service that we may not know exists. And that's the power of storytelling, and that's the power of unpacking the story. It's really learning the lesson that lives within your story. So for me, all my products and services aren't grandiose. Yes, do they bring my education, skills, talents, and treasures to the marketplace? Absolutely. But how they were born of my journey. Because this is what I know. If I'm in struggle about something and I've overcome it, there are definitely people in the marketplace that are in struggle about something and overcome it. I remember when I started connecting and working with Tria, and she's a social media strategist. She's my social media strategist. And when I talked to her about how she learned to do social media, she said, I couldn't do it. I was struggling. I was afraid to do live. I wasn't sharing properly. And it was her journey to getting from the place of struggle to the place of the teacher that actually crafted and created her product. It was everything that she did wrong learning to do it right, that actually crafted her product. But this was the other thing, why she's the strategist and not the person who just tells you this is the tool and the widget and the gadget that you need to use for social media. Why she's the strategist is because every time she had to get past something, she had to develop a strategy. And every time she had to get better at something, she had to develop a strategy. Every time she had to figure something out, she had to develop a strategy. So because she's been on the journey, what she's providing to her clients is the benefit of her journey, right? You know, I'm watching everyone that's listening. I see, you know, I see Howard, I see Anila, who's a resiliency coach, right? And Anelia's ability to teach on resiliency comes from a journey of overcoming and moving to a new country and arising from some difficult challenges. And so she knows how to be resilient because she's lived it. Now it's about pulling all the lessons out of that story and beginning to tell it to the world and let the story be the teacher. This is the power of your story. So let me know, just let me know what you guys are getting. Put a comment, a takeaway in the comment section so I know that this is landing for you. This is one of my favorite topics. And I'm going to tell you where you can learn more about it in the next little while, because I'll be speaking more about storytelling this is like Storytelling Month and Speaker Month in Mindset Mastery, and there's going to be some places that you can find this out. But I really want to know what you've got. I love Cindy, the journey of struggle. Yeah, honey, don't run from it. That is your greatest teacher, and it's the stuff that creates your product. Learning the lessons that live in your story. Hello, Grant. Welcome. Cindy, type what you'd like me to explain, hun, because I will get back to that. Now, I love this. Anila says, we sometimes do not see the distance someone has to go through before they become who they're meant to be. Absolutely. That is the power of story. What else do we have? I see Lindsay's watching. Oh my goodness. Hello, welcome. This is, yeah, absolutely, Tria. This is absolutely so worth learning. You know, when I tell you that everybody has a story, everybody has a gift. You know, my belief, and I say it when I speak, I know you're brilliant. I know you're special, and the world is waiting for your gift because I know I'm brilliant. I know I'm special, and the world is waiting for my gift. The world is waiting for your gift because, and this is what I want you to get. The reason that your gift is so unique, because you can have the skills, talents of whatever you do. So there's thousands of real estate agents in the marketplace, right? There's thousands of speakers. There's thousands of teachers. There's thousands of insurance brokers. There's the market is saturated. But what most people don't realize is what makes you unique and why people will buy you rather than another agent is your story. It's your lived experience, because that crafts who you are and it brings you to the table with a unique journey. What I'm wanting to teach you is how do you let people feel your heart, your commitment, your passion, and what has you be the me only in the marketplace. Because there's people listening and they're only tuned to you. They are waiting for you to share your journey so they can say, that's my agent. That's who I'm meant to work with because he or she gets me. All right. So let me just go back down. Yeah, thank you for that, Anila. It is, we're all on that amazing journey. Yes, we all need our me only for sure. All right, so let me tell you where you can find out more about this. I will be speaking at the Pivot Conference. I love that name, the Pivot Conference. It's hosted by Howard Wright. I know that Tria is our social media strategist is involved, and I am so excited. And there's a lineup of people. One of my good friends and mentors, Miss Lethea Owens, is going to be one of the keynotes. I am so excited for this conference, let me tell you. And they are going to give you the goods around how do you pivot as we are all shifting, right? Everyone says that, things have changed. And when things change, we are required to change or we get left behind. So as people begin to pivot, Howard's put together this conference that allows people to just get some new information so they can be armed. Now, what I do know is a big part of content and content creation is right here. It's living in your story. You may not know it's there, but it is. So I'm going to be at the Pivot Conference, and I know we'll put the link in so you can get some more information about it. And I'll be talking to you about unleashing the power of your story. Storytelling mastery. And this is for everyone because we all have a story. That means we all have something to bring to the market. And there's a unique group of people that are waiting for you. So, Pivot Conference. It is May 16th. That's a Saturday. I believe it's all day. And so you want to just get more information so that you can be in the room. It is an online conference because we're all social distancing, and so it'll come to you right from the comfort of your home. I know the technology that they're using is tight. You want to experience this. So you will see me Saturday the 16th at the Pivot Conference, along with a host of other speakers and trainers. There'll be workshops, there'll be breakouts, there'll be a marketplace. It is going to be phenomenal. So you definitely want to get on board. All right. Is there any last takeaways? Let me see. Hi, Patricia. How are you? My friend from Trinidad. Oh, good to see you, hon. All right. So as I leave you today, I want you to take some time and consider the value of your journey. Consider the lessons that live in your journey. Consider the giftings that live in your journey. Consider your story and all the things you've learned and all the things you have overcome. The question is, what story are you meant to tell? That is really the question, because we all have them. What story will let the world know your brilliance, your passion, and your heart? That's what I want to help you unpack and put into the world. Because as I said, please know you're brilliant. Do know you're special. And the world is waiting for your unique gift, because only you can bring that gift to the marketplace. Everyone, my name is Suzanne Hart. Thank you for joining Mindset Mastery. We will be back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with more on communication mastery and how you can touch people with the power of your words, your voice, your tone. Take care, blessings, and I will see you back here next week.